Perfect start.
You can tell it's been a long day.
Just looking at me being like, please say something, please say something, please say something.
How do you want to start this off?
It's hot. It's like actually proper hot.
You're hot?
It was 79, well, always, but it was like 79 degrees today and windy AF.
Yeah, it's warming up. It's windy.
So how are you adjusing to the heat?
Just
How's
happy
that going
to be
for
here.
you?
Just happy to be out there. So
yeah, I felt good today. I got totally smoked on my long run Sunday. Ripped the heat Band-Aid off in a big way.
I got out at 6:30 this morning and it was not warm. It was perfect. It was not windy.
You did the local Microcosm track workout.
That's right.
Yeah, here in Carbondale, we have a Tuesday morning track workout with the Microcosm team.
And by track workout, I specifically mean I did not do a track workout. I ran.
Oh, you guys ran trails
6
today.
miles in an hour and 10 minutes up on the Crown.
Love
where
that.
The amazing Mount Cypress runoff is going to be this weekend.
That's right. Yeah. So we have, I think just one of the awesome things about Microcosm, we have that local group run. We're hosting or sponsoring a local trail race this weekend, the Mount Cypress runoff. If you're in the area, I think there's still some spots left. So yeah, you guys should come check that out.
Check it out. It's beautiful. This is a perfect time of year too.
Yeah.
We're dry over here.
Very dry. No runoff. We need more runoff.
All right. What are we getting into today?
Got a couple hotter knots. Thank you to everyone who sent those in. If you want our takes on issues big and small, email us microcosmcoaching@gmail.com. Comment on this video or comment on Spotify. Let us know what you want us to say is hot or not. Similarly, we're going to answer a listener question. So if you have a question for us, you can put that in the comment section, or you can send us an email, microcosmcoaching@gmail.com. And then we're going to spend the greater part of today talking about mental toughness, what pop psychology gets wrong, and what science says mental toughness actually is.
Yes, and how to get tougher.
I think that this is like, I'm excited about this because I feel like mental toughness is something that culture, and particularly pop psychology or like airport book psychology, gets wrong. And we're going to look at the actual science. We're going to look at the evidence and see what it would mean to apply those ideas to our own training.
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, TJ, hot or not, counting your Strava PR as an actual PR?
Hot. I think it's super hot. I think, you know what, whatever information you want to take that's going to make you feel better about your running and create more positive associations with the work you're doing, freaking grab it and lean into it. Doesn't matter if your PR is at a race or in practice. It's all good.
I'm going to zag. Not hot. I mean, it's all made up anyway. Like the marathon is like made up, the 50K made up, all of it is made up. So I think we have to lean into that and decide what things actually matter. I think we need to call a spade. And I think that, similarly, if like for world records, like it doesn't matter if I run the world record today at the track, you have to do it under certain circumstances. I think that there's something even cooler about calling your freaking shot and then shooting it rather than just like, oh, I just showed up and PR'd. Like, no, it's even cooler to say like, I'm going to hit this to third base and then fucking doing it. That's my take.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that speaking of mental toughness, I think that can just be problematic for athletes to have such a black and white view of who they are and what their
I'm not saying it's a black and
is.
White view. I'm saying that like, is it physically possible for you to like, my 400, according to Strava, my 400 meter PR is in the context of an ultra. Like, I'm not going to go flashing that number around. It's not going on my LinkedIn or my Instagram bio.
I feel like if you're going to cherry pick little things like that, then
I think it should be in competition. I think that we compete to get the best out of ourselves. And I think if you're not getting the best out of yourself in competition, then reach out to microcosmcoaching@gmail.com.
Well, not every athlete wants to compete.
Let's say, so you're a musician. Let's say you play a song the best you ever have in practice.
And that's your level. I think you are you wherever your highest level presents itself.
That is, but like, I think that like, I look for impact. Like, I think impact and like acknowledging the specific constraints of competition does push us to be better. And you're not going to change my mind about this.
That's fine, but I do want to provide space for folks who don't want to do competition, but who
I
also
think
want
that's
to
fine,
measure
but
their
also
progress.
like, yeah, but I don't think it counts in the same way, respectfully.
There's no official definition of what that is. So I think it's okay to have a strong opinion about it, but also I definitely think there's a lot of room for interpretation.
Sure. Agree to disagree.
All right. AI in building and or analyzing training programs. Hot or not?
So yes, and I actually wanted to look at the research on this because I feel like the internet is full of like quippy hot takes about this, about like AI is going to replace coaches or like AI could never replace coaches. And I wanted to actually see like what has been studied and what evidence do we actually have. And there actually is research emerging around AI coaching for runners specifically, though it's definitely still a new area. And most of it is actually focused just on like general feasibility, user satisfaction, or physiological outcomes in comparison to human coaching or self-directed training. So I wanted to sort of give a rundown of the best available evidence so far. So here's what the research says. AI coaching can improve consistency and adherence. There are some studies that show that runners using AI platforms like app-based programs with adaptive feedback are actually more likely to stick to a plan compared to those self-coaching. The structure and reminders help boost follow-through. Effectiveness does depend on personalization. AI coaching works way better when it's adaptive. And what that means is adjusting based on recent performance or feedback. Static AI plans that are like one size fits all templates don't outperform traditional training plans and actually underperform when runners deviate from that plan. So it really comes down to like, we can't just say like AI good or bad. It's like, well, how good is the AI model? Because there's a lot of different, like coaching good or bad. Well, good coaching is great. Bad coaching is really bad, right? There is very little evidence that AI alone right now outperforms human coaching. Human coaches are still better than AI in terms of fostering motivation, managing mental health and injuries, and making complicated decisions like adjusting for life stress or even injury risk. AI right now doesn't fully understand nuance like how heat, menstrual cycles, or even psychological readiness affect performance. And models are only as good as the information they're trained on, right? So when it comes to a lot of these things, like this is where art meets science in coaching, it really depends on what the model is trained on. And, you know, because there's so little research available about female athletes, like AI models are really going to underserve female athletes. But there is evidence that AI tools can be effectively used in hybrid models. And what that looks like is effective setups that pair human coaching with AI tools. So think Training Peaks or Strava adaptive coaching, HRV based recommendations. These systems can help monitor trends and adjust load, and a coach can help interpret the context. Um, the last point that I really want to make here is that trust and buy-in really matter when it comes to coaching. Athlete outcomes are significantly better when they believe in their coach, AI or not. If runners trust the app or the system they're using, they're going to benefit, even if the programming is simple. Same with the human coach. If your athlete believes in you, they're going to do significantly better than if they don't. And it's incumbent on all coaches, AI or human, to work very hard to build that buy-in. And I think that it's also going to depend on the athlete's needs. And so a couple of studies that I want to decide if people want to look into this deeper is there's a 2022 study in JMIR Human Factors that showed that AI-based fitness coaching apps improve physical activity levels. And then there was a 2021 study in Frontiers in Sports and Active Living that I got some of this research from. So in summary, AI coaching can definitely help runners improve. We do have the evidence to say that, but it's really going to be most powerful when it's used as a tool and not a replacement for human insight. For recreational athletes, there's good evidence that AI can boost consistency and give some folks who need it structure. But for competitive runners or folks managing injury, stress, high training loads, really the nuance, that's where human coaches thrive. And so I think that instead of hot or not, I'm going to say, I want more research and it depends.
I'm going to say not hot just because computers aren't capable of the same emotional intelligence as humans. And that's why you hire a coach, you know, for all those reasons that the research here that you cited explained. I just don't know why you would want a coach to not have that human element. Like the human thing is to have a soul and to be capable of love and understanding complex emotions. Machines can't they can only at best mimic that. But they will never be able to have the full embodiment of what that is, no matter how developed they
I think
become.
it depends on athlete buy-in. I think there's absolutely a context where an athlete could have absolute buy-in with an AI coach.
If they know that's what they're getting, and then they are like, and their expectations are aligned with that, because the real nuts and bolts of this is about trust.
Yeah.
So if you can trust a machine, I'm sure you can do just fine. But personally, I would, for me, I would
I'm not.
not,
I mean,
I would not be able to outsource.
But also, like, I mean, I would say, like, if you're someone who's just like, I want to start running, like, I would say the evidence suggests, like, yeah, AI, like, if you just want to, like, build frequency, like,
Yeah.
sure, use AI. I would also say, like, this is me being old school, but like, my relationships with my coaches have been some of the most, I've been really blessed to have just like awesome coaches that I built really impactful relationships with that have had impacts far outside of just like my training. And like, that's like why they'll someday, I'm sure they'll make a model that is like absolutely perfect, and I will still work with a human because that matters to me, and that's what I will always trust. And I'm also looking for something that is more, that combines that art with science, and looking for someone who can help me apply what I'm learning and running and coaching beyond just running as well. And I'm very skeptical of AI's ability to do that. And I just really value that relationship that I've had with my coaches. It's incredibly important to me, and you're going to rip it from my cold dead hands.
I feel like it would be weird to try to have that same level of relationship and depth with AI. It just, I don't know. Like, you use AI tools a lot more than I do in your day-to-day work as a journalist, as a coach, as a comedian. I mean, you use it for all, like, you're a really early adopter, I think, of this technology, so probably have a different,
I will also say
different
the
view.
latest, I use Chat GPT in the latest update. So I, like, as a journalist, sometimes I'll use it to aggregate research to help me like clean up interview transcripts. I love the deep research tool that Chat GPT has, but there has been a very concerning rise in the amount of mistakes, like to the point where I would, like, if I had an athlete that was like using Chat GPT to do like running stuff, like, you're going to get things that are like, you know, if you want to return to run plan after a stress fracture, like, hard, like, I have real concerns. Like, there's some really, like, it's not foolproof. And I know, like, human coaches aren't either, but like,
not perfect,
I don't know if you've, like, occasionally, like, I'll have Chat GPT and it'll sort of like get itself into a corner, and I'll be like, actually, like, I was having it fact check an article that help me fact check an article. So I would feed different facts into it, and I would say, help me find a human source that can help me corroborate this, and then help me find like potentially an academic or an online source who can corroborate this info. And it kept spitting out the same incorrect thing over and over again, even when I said, that's not right, check that, like, check yourself. And so there are some like really troubling glitches that, like, I think always, like, to me, like, sometimes I'll get pretty comfortable using it. I'm like jamming and I'm like using it a lot. And then I'm like, oh shit, like, these things are seriously flawed. And humans, a lot of times, a good human will have some awareness about the ways in which they're flawed. But Chat GPT isn't built to self-assess in that way. So that would be another concern that I would flag, specifically of the model I'm using.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna go not hot on this. I do think it is hot for that really one specific thing. Like, if you're an athlete who's just super brand new and wants some accountability, and it's like really low input, not a lot of feedback, like, put an adaptable plan together for me that, like, goes based on what I'm able to do. Yeah, maybe it's helpful at this point, but for sure it's not coaching.
It's not the same. And, you know, I would just, I value coaching in my life so much. And I think it sets a high bar for how I try to show up for my athletes. And that's what I just keep coming back to, is like, I know that the connection I have with some of the folks I coach, like, there's no language learning model on earth that can do that, you know?
Yeah.
Good luck, Chat GPT. Come for me.
It will try.
It will. Yeah, that's true.
Try. There's Coop AI is already out there in the beta version. I've got an athlete whose husband is using it, and I haven't checked in recently to see how that's going, but I'm always curious.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get micro AI going sometime.
Gosh, I will not be the one to.
And it's just a language model that tells you to interact with a human and touch some fucking grass.
I'm busy coaching real people all day long.
Okay, so we have a listener question. Again, reminder, write in the comments, email us, microcosmcoaching@gmail.com. This was sent from a listener. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I am training for 2 ultras this summer, the Scenic Trail 130K and the Swiss Alps 100, both with about 9,500 meters of elevation gain. Damn!
That's a lot.
That's me editorializing. I have been training and running consistently for most of my life. In my previous ultra training and racing, I always walked any hills because that's what I was told to do. However, this time I have started running hills slowly and steadily and find that my heart rate stays low and pretty comfortable. My question is this dumb? I obviously would like to run as much as possible in my races. However, it's likely that I will be doing a lot of hiking. Should I just hike all the uphills in training? Thanks. Love the show. Oh my God. Thank you. Stop.
This is such a good question. I think we get this question a lot. And I want to tackle this in 2 parts. Really, it's about developing weaknesses and improving on weaknesses furthest out from your events and going as specific as possible to support you getting a great outcome at your event when you're closer to that event. So when you have a question about how do I improve in running more hills during races, you have to take a long-term view or a 30,000-foot view on how that's possible. Earlier in the season, yes, you should be doing uphill workouts. You should be doing what you're doing where you're slowly and steadily finding more hills that you can run and, experimenting with that lower heart rate. It's really important that you do this because improving on hills is a function of both fitness and neuromuscular adaptations.
Correct.
So if you don't practice running uphill, you'll never bridge the gap between how much you hike and how much you would rather run.
I think another sort of heuristic I come to on this is running makes you better at running and also better at hiking because it makes you fitter, and being fitter makes you better at hiking. Right. Practicing hiking does make you better at hiking, but it doesn't meaningfully improve fitness to the same extent that running does. So if you're doing hard rock, shout out to our dude Adam, who just got pulled in off the wait list. Yeah. Go Adam.
Pumped.
Probably practicing a good bit of hiking, but you're not having him hike absolutely everything because you do still want to build fitness and you don't want to kneecap your aerobic development because you're just so focused on the hyper specific hiking as a skill. So hiking is a skill we want to develop, but running also a skill and also a fitness builder.
Right. So, earlier in the year, you're working on developing the running. I think that's really, really important. And it sounds like this listener's done a really good job of developing their overall fitness over a long period of time because the result is now they can run more slowly and steadily uphill with a lower heart rate. That's excellent. That's great. I would say as a general rule, as you continue to segue into more race-specific training and you're getting closer to your races, continue to run any hills you can see the top of. Keep practicing that, keep exercising that. But now let the main thing be the main thing. If you've got really long climbs, make sure your long runs have long climbs.
Yeah.
If you're planning on hiking and those climbs are very steep, I'm pretty familiar with the terrain out in the Alps, those climbs are quite steep. It's very difficult for even Jim Walmsley to run those climbs. So you're going to want to work on that hiking skill. And I think a great thing that I like to do with my athletes who are running events like Hard Rock or Wasatch 100, High Lonesome, any of these really steep races here in the US, or maybe are doing UTMB as another example. You want to get familiar enough with the hiking that you can hike at a steady clip without feeling you can get tired.
And particularly practicing some very specific things like using poles and eating while using poles.
Yeah, all of that works together. So if you don't practice that and you don't mimic the terrain that you're going to be on as closely as you can, it doesn't really matter if you're able to run small portions of those hills, you'll still feel tired and underprepared. So trust that the work will pay off if you design your year correctly. Work on the weaknesses further out from the race, go more specific so you feel very confident with the exact competencies you need for that race. And then on race day, if you do have opportunities to run, if those grades flatten out a little bit, it's not always 12 to 15% grade the whole time you're in the Alps. Sometimes you get on a little plateau. That's where you can practice that jogging, and some of that work that you've done earlier in the year can start to show up for you. And that's, I think that's a product. Having it show up for you in those moments is really related to how much you're trusting the training, and just allowing that to come through, and knowing that you'll be okay and you will still be able to hike strong and finish the race strong later on.
Yeah. And another way I want athletes to think about this is like in terms of recovery runs and endurance runs. For recovery runs, we really need those to stay easy.
Right.
Like, don't fuck with your recovery. On endurance runs, we do want to avoid verging into steady state territory. But I think that if you're pushing a hill just slightly, like pushing slightly maybe beyond like a spicy sort of endurance effort, like we're thinking 6.5, like a spicy 6.5, but not a 7, and you're able to get back into that endurance run. Like, if you're able to stay true to the spirit and the overall intent of the run, if there's like a couple moments where you're maybe running a little bit hot, I think that's okay, because it helps build that skill of running. Because if you're just so rigidly training by your heart rate and looking at your damn watch for the whole run, you are going to be holding yourself back in ways that aren't helpful. But again, like on recovery runs, do you need to be like forcing those hills? No. But on endurance runs, I think that's where you can get a little more experimental, because again, like, remember, your body doesn't work in absolutely rigid zones.
Right.
So I think that gives us a little room for flexibility as well. And we can harness that flexibility to build fitness.
Yeah. And you need that. I really feel like you need that in order to bridge that gap. It's a really hard gap to bridge, but if you work at it, you chip away at it, it will get better. Like, you and I can both speak for how much more we're able to run in long ultras on the uphills, because we put 7 and 8 years of practice in, and it really makes a difference. So play that long game.
Yep. I think, again, people there's like a certain subset of ultra runners that always go to, running uphill is hard, I need to do more strength training. Yes, strength training is good. We love strength training. I think all athletes should be doing strength training, but like, just getting like fucking jacked quads is not like the only thing that helps you run uphill. You can have the world's like sickest chassis, but if the engine sucks, it doesn't matter at all. It's like having a Ferrari, but you drop in like a Fiat engine.
Well, that's where designing like the full year of training really matters. And like, how are you working on those discrete systems? Which systems are you working on at which time? How are you periodizing the approach to up towards the race specific training and all of that? I mean, that's where you really get into like the nuts and bolts.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Should we segue on here to mental toughness?
Yeah. I'm curious what comes up for you when we say mental toughness.
I think of the man, the myth, the legend, David Goggins.
Me too. I hate that he has the corner on this.
He's incredible.
But I also think about Steve Magnus, who I actually do really like. And I would highly recommend his book, Do Hard Things. I actually just interviewed him for my other podcast, The Trailhead, that's coming out in 2 weeks. It's really, really good. And I think he's done the world a great service by pivoting the conversation away from like the David Goggins, like mental toughness is finishing Cocodona with HAPE and a stress fracture, towards mental toughness is mental flexibility, having the discrete ability to respond instead of react. And I really like that idea.
Yeah. And I do mention David Goggins kind of tongue in cheek, because he is like the popularized version. We'll get into the myths of mental toughness, but he is the personification of the myth of mental toughness. When I mention David Goggins, it's kind of tongue in cheek, because he's really the personification of what pop culture thinks mental toughness is. But that's not really mental toughness. My working definition of mental toughness is having the ability to discern between when you need to go hard and put a little extra in and really work through the discomfort, and when you need to pull back and rest so you can kind of live to give that big effort and like on the next day.
Yeah. And I think our culture really glorifies the performative version of mental toughness. Like I always hate seeing the stories where it's like, so-and-so ran the London Marathon with a broken leg. Don't do that. Don't write about it like it's cool. It should be, don't do this. So-and-so ran the London Marathon. Like, fuck that. Like, stop reporting on, like, glorifying that. So let's zoom out and talk about what mental toughness is, because it's not running the London Marathon with a broken leg.
Yeah. So mental toughness, well, really what's happening is the brain limits our performance, right? So how hard something feels, that can regulate how much energy we give to the thing that we're doing and can help us manage our effort really well. Like think ultra running or a marathon, you're managing effort. That's a function of your perception of your effort and how hard you think something feels, whether you have the energy left to continue to push forward later. This is also something that we think about, like kind of the central governor theory and things like that really come to mind. Like the
shout out to Alex Hutchinson's book, Endure.
Love that book. I mean, such great information just about how our brains really form a central role in our ability to do things that are hard. But within that, there are limits to that. And we do need to know those limits, which is a function of awareness, building that awareness. And I think having like a healthy definition of what mental toughness actually is like the first place to start with all of this.
Yeah. And I would also say there's sort of a misperception that like you're either mentally tough or you're not. And that's not true. That's not what we see in the research at all. It's not something you're born with. It's something that's built over time, just like physical fitness. So figuring out ways to implement this in training, to think about how it shows up in our lives, I think it's so powerful to sort of reclaim that narrative over it of like, okay, well, maybe I'm not as mentally tough as I would like to. I feel like if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I'm sufficiently mental tough, that's worth investigating. I know I'm on a journey of always trying to interrogate my relationship with mental flexibility and mental toughness and trying to improve it in ways that serve me in my athletic performance and professional performance. And I think what this goes back to is like studies that show that cyclists who are mentally tired, like if you show up to your 10K and you're mentally tired, you will quit sooner and you will rate the effort as being higher, even though like metabolically, physically, like it's the same. So your perception of effort is a huge factor, and your brain is consistently and constantly assessing how hard is this and how long do I have to keep going.
And
so
if you're curious a little bit about the inner workings of that, go back, listen to our podcast on stress, where we talk a lot about mental stress and how that affects performance, because that's essentially what's happening there. What I find really interesting right now is there is this idea in pop culture that without pain, there's no gain, and you have to push harder no matter what. And I think that kind of sounds nice. I remember when I was, in my career as a professional ski mountaineer, and DNFIT gave us these gloves that on one hand said no pain and on the other palm said no gain. And I was like, oh, when I'm doing my uphill intervals on my skis and I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's kind of right. But if I think about that every single day, oh my God, I'm like, am I going to have the energy to like actually go and do the thing I want to do, which is like to be fit enough to go climb a really hot, big mountain and ski down it?
Yeah. The way I would want athletes to think about pain is as a neutral messenger, right? Like there's pain and there's discomfort. Like if you're doing a hard schema workout or you're running a marathon, yes, there will be pain that's sort of more discomfort, which is your body saying, we're running a marathon. This is really hard, but that is different than your body saying, oh my God, I think your leg is broken. And learning to really get in touch with your body's signs and signals is actual mental toughness. Ignoring your body is not mental toughness. It takes a high degree of intelligence and athletic autonomy to understand what your body is saying, and sort of goes back to the saying I like of like, learn to listen to your body when it's whispering so you don't have to hear it when it's screaming. Pain is a really valuable teacher.
Yeah.
It tells us if we're hurting ourselves. Like that's not what we want to do. That is not what we are here to do. We are here to take care of ourselves and use athleticism and movement as a way of treating ourselves well and taking care of ourselves. And sometimes part of self-care is embracing discomfort. Like I can't sit here and say that if you're comfortable all the time, you're taking good care of yourself. I don't believe that.
Right.
I believe that if you're truly attending to yourself, there will be immense discomfort. There will also be pain, and the goal isn't to avoid pain. It's to learn from pain.
Right.
What is this telling me, and how should I respond?
And I think just to step in for a second, we have to understand that without stress, you can't grow.
Yes.
So if your objective is to get to some place beyond where you currently are, you have to be able to endure discomfort, because with stress comes discomfort.
Yep.
The two don't work without each other. The hardest things in life are the things that usually provoke us to change, whether that's training adaptations, that's at work or somewhere else, you know? So without that, we can't function in any other state other than the one we're in. We can't move beyond, we can't transcend where we are. So for most athletes, pain is integral.
Yeah.
However, how much pain and how often, that's really a place that I find really problematic within the space of endurance, but it's also culturally, I think, especially in the United States, where we have this go for broke, work at all costs culture. It's very difficult.
We're totally good. We are fine.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking on us.
It's really difficult for people to step back. You know, they get that pain signal come in and they're like, you know what, like if I don't push through this, I'm not good enough. I don't push through this, I'm not enough. If I don't push through this, people won't accept me and see me as whole and complete. I won't be a part of this community. And I think it's very difficult in the endurance space when you have a lot of people who consistently lily pad from one really hard thing onto the next before they've even taken a step back to reflect on what were the lessons in the great things that I got from that thing that was really hard. They're already on to the next. And they're out there, they have megaphones. They have a lot of people who follow them.
It's weird. It's almost like people who are mega influencers aren't telling us narratives that are helpful for growth and health.
Because it's like nice and it gets them more followers. Like they feed the system. And I think, you know, one of my personal missions as a coach is to operate in direct confrontation to that narrative, because it's not healthy for people. It's what leads people to burnout, and it's what will take you to a place where you didn't achieve what you dreamed.
This is why I am faster than David Goggins.
So
catching strays.
You know, I want to send that message out there where in pop culture, people say, you know what, got to push through at all costs, give everything up for that thing you're pursuing. That's nice. That's flashy. It's motivational for a minute.
Looks nice on a t-shirt.
Right. Until you've tried it and you're like, oh shit, I can't even get up in the morning anymore. And I think every athlete has to flirt a little bit with what that's like in order to find the middle ground for themselves and to develop their mental toughness, which again is both the ability to push through and to persevere when things are hard, but also to be able to discern when you need to pull back and rest so you don't burn out and you can sustain the process over time, which will then get you to where you want to go and more. And
I think
I could just go on and on.
I know, man, we're going to be here all night. I think another important thing to talk about is that motivation isn't reliable. Motivation will fade as your fatigue builds. And real mental toughness comes from familiarity with discomfort and not forcing motivation.
Right.
There's actually really cool research on cold water immersion that shows that people feel less stressed over time with exposure, even if their body's reaction doesn't change. That discomfort becomes familiar. There's also studies that was like, they took a swim team and they had them like stick their hands in buckets of cold water before their season. So they're in their off season, they're not doing their consistent training, and they weren't able to keep their hands in the buckets of ice very long. And then they tested them again during season and after their season. And like they weren't specifically targeting, am I better at sticking my hand in an ice bucket of water? Because no one does that. But they were able to handle that different discomfort significantly better because they were learning how to handle that discomfort in the course of their regular training. And I think that, you know, that's one of the things that running can help us in terms of life. Like sitting with uncomfortable thoughts and feelings that I have during ultras helps me navigate that in life. And it's not about numbing it out or tuning it out, right? It's about recognizing it and saying like, yep, having that thought, having that feeling, I'm going to respond instead of react.
I think just one of the greatest tools athletes can use to start building that mental toughness right there is exactly what you mentioned. I don't know what other people call this, but I've always called that tool labeling. Like when you have a thought, acknowledge that's a thought. When you have that feeling, just acknowledge that's a feeling. And that creates a nice little space there for you then to be able to discern, is this the moment where I need to push through, or shall I hold back, or something else?
This is so interesting. So I was recently doing a VO2 Max training block. We actually just started working with a new mental performance coach here at Microcosm. Christy, can you remind me her last name?
Christy
Aish?
Aish. Yeah.
Christy Aish. And I was really struggling in my VO2 max workouts. I wasn't able to stay engaged. I was like quitting on myself. I was really struggling with that discomfort and moderating my effort. So I worked with Christy specifically on staying. It was funny because like our entire mental performance session lasted longer than the accumulated amount of time I had spent at VO2 max effort. Shout out Christy. And we sort of worked on developing that skill set for like ideas and mantras to counter the discomfort with when I was in that VO2 max workout. And then the day after our mental performance session, I went out to do my VO2 max workout. And I noticed, like, as soon as I started doing the interval, my brain kept serving me all of these reasons that I should stop. Like, oh, this doesn't feel like, oh, it's already too hot. Like, it's windy. You got out here way too late. There's all these reasons that, like, the workout is, like, already ruined. And, like, why keep going? And then I had this other thought to counter that of, like, there were so many reasons my brain was serving me to quit. And then I had the thought, there's no reason to keep going. There's none at all. I can't think of a single reason. And that's what kept me in it.
Yeah. There is no reason to keep going.
Yeah. I kept saying there is no, like every time my brain was like, here's a reason, I said, there is no reason. And then I was able to complete my VO2 max workout and had the best workout of the training block so far.
Wow. That's super cool. I would never have thought about it to approach it in that way. I love that was a great discovery for you.
Yeah, there's no reason to keep going.
Well, and I think what's really cool here is, you know, as we segue into talking about, well, how do we build mental toughness? Is that if this is a skill that we can all build over time, it's not something we're innately born with. How do we continue to build that? Well, one is putting yourself in that position where you know you're going to be met with that mental friction.
Yeah.
Or physical friction, or both. So for you, you know, a great example of that is continuing to do those VO2 max workouts. Those are a growth edge for you. They bring up, you know, thoughts.
They're hard. Lots of thoughts are brought up.
Yeah. And physically they feel terrible.
Lots of breakfast almost brought up as well.
Right. Exactly. Like, you know, you're doing them right if you're just at like one level below throwing up.
Yep.
So, you know, making sure that you seek it out. Like, you don't really back off from those moments, but you say, you know, maybe you restructure those thoughts a little bit around the VO2 max workout. This is an opportunity for me to work on my mental toughness today.
I also think it's a balance, right? And it really requires self-awareness. Like, we need to not shy away from doing workouts. Like, go have an imperfect workout. Yeah. Go allow yourself to experience the discomfort that's inherent of running at anything above like a 5 out of 10 effort. But it also doesn't mean that we need to do all of our runs in the absolute heat of the day, right? If you're someone who often shies away from the heat, like, yeah, maybe your growth edge is structuring in some intentional heat training when it like is actually compliant with your training. Like, obviously don't go run if it's 110 degrees and you're trying to do a recovery run. That's going to all kinds of mess up the adaptations. Doesn't mean you need to go put on a weight vest and then try to run up Mount Everest. Like, there are happy mediums here, and we never want to seek out the extreme version. And I would actually say that just like the course of well-rounded training presents sufficient opportunity.
And I think that's the most important thing for athletes to recognize here when building mental toughness. This isn't built over one huge workout, one like workout that you drop on Strava and people are like, oh shit, you did that? This is built on a
Strava PR.
Hey, you know what? I never PR in my workouts anymore. This is built on very small steps frequently. So your workout on Wednesday, your long run on Saturday, rinse and repeat that week in and week out for, 16 weeks. It's every interval you do is an opportunity. Your tempo run or, a long climb that you're trying to run more of. A strength workout that's challenging. It's built on small steps. So it's not like the big flashy thing isn't going to get you mental toughness. It's really engaging with this in a meaningful way consistently over time. And then there's also some other things you can do. Like Zoe mentioned, having that specific self-talk that you're going to use in a specific
nihilist self-talk.
You are a nihilist. So that is perfect for you.
It's authentic.
There is absolutely no meaning into those VO2 max intervals.
Only the meaning I give them / the meaning inherent in adequately developing my top end aerobic system.
Hey, you know what? That's good. That's good self-talk.
It's good self-talk. Yeah.
This is hard, but I get to develop my ceiling.
Yeah. I also think that there's research that shows visualization. And something I always work with my athletes in our pre-race calls is instructing them like, okay, think about a challenge you might encounter on race day. Like, let's say you throw up. Let's say it's hotter than you think. Let's say you're behind your splits. Think of something challenging and then literally like walk me through, visualize, and then communicate it to me how you're going to respond in that moment, because there's research that shows that activating those neural pathways make it way less scary and less foreign if and when it happens during racing.
Absolutely. And practicing how you want to show up for a hard moment beforehand, it does get into those exact same neural pathways. So it makes it more likely you'll access those in the moment rather than having to think about, oh shit, how do I want to deal with this challenge? So when you predetermine what you want to do, the idea is just to commit to that, and you practice that through the visualization so it becomes more automatic. Another thing that I think is really, really important here is also to just recognize that in the day-to-day of your training, you're going to be met with moments that are challenging, and just observe how you handle those things. And that experience can help you set some standards around how you want to show up. For example, one standard that I always set that is geared specifically towards building my mental toughness and wanting to finish my races strong is I never finish my intervals slow. Like I never fall off my interval.
You don't fade.
I always go as hard as I can till the timer beeps, not 2 seconds before or 3 seconds. I always give my best right up until the point that beep happens. And then, I collapse on the ground, exhausted. But I always try to finish the interval.
Right.
I don't short my runs unless there's a real reason to. Because I
think that is so important, because your character will always know when you take shortcuts.
Right.
Like, I, as your coach, like, you can tell me whatever you want. Like, there's some things that I won't exactly know, but every opportunity in those 3 seconds, or in how you finish that run, or in how you show up in those little micro moments of building mental toughness, becomes who you are. And you have to pay very close attention to who you are in those moments.
Right. And I think when you set those standards, you can embody the person's like, I always give my best. Even if that's only an 8 out of 10 today, because I didn't have the energy to go 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I did my absolute best. Then you can walk away knowing, and you're having that sense of satisfaction that's going to allow you to want to go out and do it again. That helps to develop your mental toughness.
Yeah.
If you don't set those standards for yourself and you don't really know how you want to be out there, then you're kind of just giving it up to all the control up to environmental factors and feelings.
Nice,
and that's challenging because, like, sometimes, like you said, Zoe, like you don't feel your best. You don't feel that motivation. Maybe fatigue's building.
I mean, you can technically only feel your best once, right? Like, that's your best.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do for the other 99.999% of the time?
You could try to be David Goggins, but.
So let's talk a little bit about how this can play out on race day. And I think something that we're always emphasizing here is focusing on execution. Like you said, those ways of being, asking athletes, how do you want to show up on race day? Not the outcome. I always like athletes to identify their A, B, and C goals. Actually, this is my AI funny moment. I had recorded I had taken a transcript that was recorded by an AI, and I was going back into the transcript to get notes from it. And when I had said A goals, B goals, and C goals, it thought I said Eagles, bagels, and seagulls. Eagles, bagels, and seagulls.
That's hilarious.
But I kind of want to call it now like Eagles, bagels, seagulls. Southern accent.
What are your Eagles for this race?
What are your Eagles? What are your bagels for this race?
That's like your Eagles are your like soaring high goals, the big dream goals.
Bagel is like right in the middle, right?
Yep.
And then your seagull is like the trash bird.
It's hilarious.
Anyway, so
that's a good one. Thank you, AI.
So, identify that outcome and then think about how you want to show up to get there, and then hold the outcome extremely likely, but cling to that execution. break the race into those small, manageable parts and really use self-talk, visualize those tough scenarios, and really practice accepting discomfort instead of fighting it. Like, say to yourself, this is hard and that's okay. Practicing self-soothing, particularly doing long runs, during workouts, saying like, this is okay, I'm okay. Because thankfully our brains, I mean, they've helped our species stay alive this long. And part of that is by avoiding discomfort, right? Like, it's not very adaptive to be someone who just embraces discomfort willy-nilly. So we do like understand that it's okay when you recognize that part of yourself that's like, I don't really like to hurt. I don't like to be uncomfortable. That is fine. That makes you normal. But we can develop that skill set of recognizing, like, I can tell that my body is feeling uncomfortable here. That's okay. I'm okay. And practicing self-soothing, again, it is important that you are, in fact, actually okay. And this is in the scenario of workout, not stress fracture. So practicing staying calm under pressure will help you perform better when things get tough. And think about those specific ways that you'll self-soothe. And think about, like, for me, I like to identify those like trigger moments. Like, here are specific things that can happen during a workout. Like, I'm not as like I don't feel like I'm as fast as I want to be, or I didn't get as high up the hill as I did last time. There are triggers that will cause me to over-index on the discomfort relative to the outcome. And you can identify those triggers and then use them as a moment to re-engage with the effort. I'm not as fast as I want to be. That's okay. Keep running.
I love that. I think that you really nailed just some of the important nuance around the self-talk, especially when it comes to like the self-compassion and acceptance of that it's okay that it feels hard.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that athletes get wrong when they're looking at like their self-talk is they often forget the importance of self-talk being accepting. So this hill is hard, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
This hill is hard, but I'm capable of doing hard things. That acceptance keeps you in alignment with your reality. As soon as you say it should be this a different way than it is, you're in confrontation with reality. And so things will be more uncomfortable. So you can manage your discomfort by going towards it. I accept that this is uncomfortable. I think this is one of the real keys to self-talk for folks. Go towards what you're feeling. Don't be in denial about it. And I think that that's super, super important when you go to the other end of the spectrum where it's like, I feel pain, but I'm going to run through it. I don't care if it's a stress fracture. Like, we're not being really honest. We're not accepting of how we feel. That's really problematic no matter what part of that spectrum you're on. The other thing that I really wanted to mention here is the fact that when you are going into race day, develop feeling-based outcomes for yourself as well. How do I want to feel out there?
I would say like my outcomes are primarily feelings-based. Like, it's hard because I don't know how to put words to it, but like, I know what it feels like to race to my potential, and I know how to do it. I can't quite put it into words, and it's not a speed, but it is a feeling. And I feel like that's why I love racing, and I love chasing that feeling.
You should, a little coaching, you should try really hard to articulate what that is, even if you can't get to the very heart of it, because it's kind of ethereal and it is a feeling, and feelings are sometimes hard to describe. But the more aware you are of what that feeling based outcome is, how does it feel to run a race to my potential? You know, that question, the more you can check in with yourself and make that your barometer for the day. And that can help you to understand if you are being mentally tough or not, if you are sticking to your process-oriented goals, your standards, your way of being. Because if you don't have some kind of a barometer to understand where you're at, then it can be really difficult to kind of evaluate non-judgmentally on your way and course correct if you get off course with these things. Because something that we're probably not going to have a ton of time to talk about here is attention and how that drifts a lot during races. So it's easy sometimes to be like focused on good self-talk, but these races are very long, even marathons, even 10K, our attention is going to shift all over the place. So if it's constantly shifting, and then we kind of forget like, oh, shit, I'm fatigued, I forgot this is who I want to be, that feeling can help you navigate and tell you, oh, I'm a little off course. Let me get back to what I committed to doing.
Yeah. And before we wrap up, I did want to touch briefly on the importance of recovery. We love our recovery here. One way to make things feel less hard is to make them less hard. And that is through recovery. Fatigue increases your perceived effort. Tired athletes feel the work more. That's including like mental and emotional fatigue. And go back and listen to last week's episode about stress as stress. Sleep loss makes it harder to handle discomfort and reduces decision-making sharpness. I think that's another important thing for our athletes running, 200 plus mile races. Mindfulness practice helps regulate emotions and stay calm in tough moments. There is a lot of evidence to back up mindfulness practices, particularly meditation, all different types of meditation. Not going to get overly prescriptive there, but I do think integrating a mindfulness practice is extremely helpful for athletes. I personally really like to use the Headspace app, and they did a collaboration with the NBA that does self-compassion for athletes, which oh my God, how did you guys know? But thank you. I really liked it's like a 10-day course of just sort of like lightly guided meditations. It's not like sitting in on a class. Rested athletes are just like much better equipped to handle mental challenges in training and racing. So don't start from behind, right? Take care of yourself so that you can be mentally tough. Mental toughness isn't getting 4 hours of sleep, having coffee for breakfast, and then jamming a tempo run down your throat. Mental toughness is getting the rest that you need, getting adequate nutrition so that you can actually show up and stay in tune with that real discomfort on your run and your workout when the training calls for it and not before then.
I do think that a lot of athletes struggle with that disconnect between that fatigue building and then not understanding why they don't have the bandwidth to manage the challenges as well. And that fatigue really makes a difference. So again, another plug, go check out our conversation around and our deep dive around stress, because mental stress is just as important as the physical stress, muscle breakdown and neuromuscular breakdown and all of those things that we're really accustomed to in endurance events. It happens to our brains, and that affects our ability to handle uncomfortable situations. All right, some practical takeaways here. You want to build your mental toughness just like you build your fitness. So as we mentioned before, thin slice it. An interval here, a tempo run there, your back-to-back long runs, they all add up. And when you engage in that process consistently, you become more mentally tough. So you don't necessarily have to do anything special, although self-talk, visualization, and other mental tools are very helpful in aiding the process. You're going to be just fine if you stick to a balanced training plan that has things that are hard and challenging built into them. Small exposures all the time. That's what you want. That's what helped build the resilience.
Yeah. And, I think it's important that willpower is not a thing. Motivation is not a thing. It will not get you very far. It looks nice on a poster in the gym, but it is not seen in the research to be a wellspring of forward motion. So develop those intrinsic motivations rather than relying on extrinsic motivation. Use tools like the self-talk and the visualization, and develop a really good sense of your own readiness. If your fatigue is too high, adjust your training. You don't get bonus points for doing workouts exhausted. You don't get bonus points for playing on hard mode. I'm always trying to help athletes we don't always need to play on hard mode. You can play on easy mode. Get a pre-prepared breakfast, don't do your long run in the hottest part of the day if you don't have to, and it's not advantageous for you to do so. There are some times where, yes, you will want to play on hard mode to skill up, but we don't ever want to settle into a default. I think if people take away anything, it's learn to build that ability of making discrete decisions and choosing hard when it's beneficial so that you can better cope with it when it's not as much of a choice.
I think my biggest big picture takeaway from this whole conversation is mentally tough athletes stay healthier and more consistent year after year.
Yep.
This is really the key to developing sustainability in this process and accomplishing the things that you're dreaming about now and the stuff that you haven't even dreamed up yet. Again, my working definition for mental toughness is your ability to discern between when you need to really lean in to that discomfort and push through and when you need to pull back.
Yep.
and
Because if
rest.
the answer was always lean in, that's not very tough.
Sometimes that's hard.
That'd be freaking easy. Yeah. Sometimes your growth edge might be rest.
Yeah.
Your growth edge might be don't run too hard.
Sometimes that is like the mentally hardest thing to do,
Yeah.
is to just say, I need to not do my workout today.
Yeah.
I need to end work early and take a nap, or, whatever. Like sometimes
I need to eat an eagle, beagle, and a seagull.
All right, guys, thanks for listening. Hope you found this helpful. Reach out with your questions, your ideas, your thoughts, the things you'd like us to cover. We are here for it. microcosmcoaching@gmail.com. Check out our coaching at microcosm-coaching.com. And we also do Instagram, Microcosm Coaching. See you guys next week.